You thought I was gonna hit the wall again. I'm not that stupid. Fuck.
Just know you'll find a voice inside the past you shared.
Stroked the burned and blistered skin of Geoffrey's scalp and gave a low chuckle.
I personally enjoyed the way you treated the fair sex, especially that poor cow who married you.
He tutted.
You really made her life hell, didn't you, Geoffrey? You didn't even cry when she killed herself, you heartless bastard. Some might say that a man driving his wife to suicide would be worthy of demonic status in itself. But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that.
He leaned forward and licked the blood that ran from the ruptures on Geoffrey's neck. Geoffrey struggled to keep his voice steady. Then how does it work, Master? Clive was beginning to lose himself in the taste of Geoffrey's blood. He slowly sank his teeth into Geoffrey's shoulder. The scream that followed did nothing to awaken him. Master! Please! Please don't eat me again! Geoffrey screamed. You said you'd answer my question! Clive lifted his mouth from the wound he had made and savoured for a moment the little piece of Geoffrey that steamed in his mouth, enjoying its delicate, lightly barbecued flavour.
Oh yes, of course. How do you get to be a demon?
He watched as the wound began to heal, wet and sticky like hot treacle, ready to be enjoyed all over again should he feel the urge.
Well, that's a decision to be made by your master and mine.
Geoffrey felt a surge of hope, which he tried to keep from his voice as he replied, timidly, You mean...
Yes, him.
But how does he get to know my wish? Do I tell him, or do you?
Fortunately for you, he knows all. If it were up to me, the last thing I'd do is pass on your request. I like having you here too much.
Clive's tongue slaked across the back of Geoffrey's neck. Then, Geoffrey blurted, closing his eyes and desperately trying to keep Clive's attention on his words rather than on the taste of his flesh. Then what happens next?
Oh, I don't know.
Clive mused.
He considers your request. If he deems you worthy, you get your chance to please him. If you please him, you become a demon.
How will I know his decision?
I pass it on to you.
When does he tell you?
He already has.
He has? When?
He lives in my mind, as he does in yours. You just aren't as clearly tuned in as we demons are.
So, Geoffrey stammered, what is his decision? Clive sat up on Geoffrey's back and looked lovingly at the scorched flesh of his favourite charge. It saddened him to have to give Geoffrey Leach a chance at demonic status, but he had his orders, and Geoffrey now had his mission. He sighed and bent to kiss the bubbling wound he had made earlier. The smell was too much to resist.
Oh, I'll tell you later, right after what I sincerely hope isn't our last supper.
Clive drew back his lips and sank down to the wound on Geoffrey's shoulder. Geoffrey screamed, his desperate struggles to be free of the monster on his back only adding to its pleasure in devouring him. They writhed together, one lost in pleasure, the other in unspeakable torment. And presently, when a strangely focused fire howled around them like a whirlwind, Geoffrey welcomed it as a blessed relief, his screams dissolving into the roar and crackle of the flames before dissolving into nothing at all. Geoffrey's eyes fluttered open to a deep, incomprehensible whiteness. He stared into it for at least 30 seconds before he realized he was in no pain. In fact, he felt comfortable. Then he became aware of air moving in and out of his lungs. He was breathing air. He blinked and moved his hands. He felt softness beneath his fingers, warm and dry like fabric. He raised his hands before his face, and a sound issued from him that made the nearby nurse look over in alarm. "Mr. Leach, I'm not burning," Geoffrey croaked. I'm not dead." The nurse smiled and came over to his bedside. "No, you're not. But it was a close call. We thought we'd lost you for a while there. Fortunately, the doctors were able to bring you back." Geoffrey touched his face, running his fingers over his lips and cheeks. He touched his hair and ran his fingers through it, rubbing at his scalp and delighting in the sensation. "I'm not dead." He laughed, but the rush of air snagged in the dryness of his throat, and he fell to choking uncontrollably. The nurse steadied him. "Easy now, Mr. Leach. You've undergone a very traumatic experience. Here," she handed him a glass of water. "Drink this, slowly." He accepted the glass with both hands, marveling at its smooth, clean touch. Then he drank, and the sensation of the water running over his tongue and into his throat was the greatest pleasure he felt he had ever known. He drank, savouring every drop, washing the water around his mouth like it was the most precious substance on earth, which he now knew it was. "Hey, not so fast." The nurse laid her hand on the glass to slow him. "Sip it." Geoffrey let her ease the glass away from his lips, and he turned to look at her. She was beautiful, a plump and plain young woman, unremarkable in every way, and yet all he could see was the selfless kindness in her deep brown eyes, and her smile. She was happy to see him. His heart ached as the vision of her face began to soften and swim in his tears. He was alive.